Hello, sports fans, and welcome to our Tuesdays on the Edge, our version of Overreaction Monday, but of course, better. And welcome to 2024, boys. I know day one, this is not the Tuesday on the Edge we're hoping for when we talked about Friday. We hope you enjoyed Friday's episode. It was a great one, great rundown of all the games. Unfortunately, not some of the outcomes we wanted, though, right? And of course, your host, Rowdy, joined by co-host Coop and Big Boy. And how are we doing, guys, after we know what happened yesterday?
Not a great way to start the new year. But it's all right. It happens. If you would ask me at the start of the season, just like we said, Big 12 champs, 12 champs, 12-2. There we go. I'll sign me up all day long. But Big Boy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the same way. It's disappointing, of course, but you know, I wasn't expecting. I thought we could win the Big 12. I thought they looked they just didn't look like the team that we thought was going to show up. Washington's a good team, and I still think UT did a good job. I mean, people are going to hate and say they didn't look good, and they still put up numbers and put up a lot of points. So, but yeah, unfortunately, I got the hiccups, bro. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to drink water. I'm trying to hold my breath, but it's not working.
Good, man.
Well, we're going to, of course, get into that and give you our thoughts and run down on the game. Of course, there's other sport events that happen too, guys, right? We had the other semifinal matchup. Jinx is going to be joining us here in the next couple of minutes to give us his thoughts on this game as well as a diehard fan. But really, before we get into the Texas game, I do want to talk a little bit about that other semifinal game. Great game, right? Overtime. I mean, playoff got it right. Playoff committee got it right, man. I mean, two games that
Two great games.
Come down to the last play of the game on both sides, one in overtime, one at the end of the fourth quarter. But obviously, Michigan came out big there with the win in overtime. What were our thoughts on that game? Obviously, we watched it before the Texas game came on.
At the end of the day, like you said, the four right teams were in the playoff. You can't argue that. Everyone wanted to see two good games, and they got them. Both games coming down to the last play, like you said. Michigan, man, like corn, 83 yards rushing. There you go, big boy. You hit on that one, but
I hit on that one.
You hit on that one. But 83 yards rushing, we said that it was going to come down to who ran the ball better, and I think Michigan's offensive line really showed out and really showed that they're legit and they can go, play against that Alabama D line and still do good. So that's what I saw of that. But what about you, big boy?
Yeah, I think Michigan. I think in that game was kind of like the Texas game. That if you watched it should have been more one sided. I think Michigan in the first half didn't take advantage of some. I mean, to me, they were dominating, and they just couldn't score. But it was a good game. Michigan's a tough team, like I said, man. They've been through a lot, and they're mentally, physically tough. And I think Washington's going to have a time on their hands with Michigan. So I think it's going to be a good game. But I mean, we'll get more into that later on in the week. But yeah,
I mean, Michigan's defense, man. They stepped up again, right? They're big. I mean, held Milrow he only threw the ball 23 times. He ran it 21 times. Okay.
yeah.
He almost ran it more than he threw it. He was still 16 for 23, only 116 yards, only 5-yard average. So Michigan's DBs, I mean, they're good. That's the thing with Washington, which we'll get more into that game on Friday's episode, of course, and kind of break that down for you. But Michigan's DBs, they're a lot better than Texas's, right? Texas probably is a better
They're
defense.
faster.
But Michigan's defense isn't too far off from Texas's defense with better and faster DBs. And obviously they did that with stopping Alabama's passing, right? And I'll give props to JJ McCarthy, right? 17 for 27, 221, 3 TDs, averaging 8 yards a pass. Did what he needed to do to win the game, right? Still hasn't got over that 30-10 mark because they were able to average 4 yards a carry, 32 carries as a team for 130 yards and a touchdown. So still, like I said, if he gets into that 30 pass attempt marks, I don't know what he's going to do, but we knew Alabama's secondary. I mean, their defense hasn't been top notch either, right? I mean, Quinn torched up their secondary. Their secondary's been giving up shit all year. So impressive by McCarthy a little bit. Obviously, the run game and helped them out.
He's tough, man. That play when they threw that, the throwback, like he threw it, the receiver, they threw it back to him, made that one-handed catch and threw it. I mean, if you look at the play, he also had a guy going above him, deeper. But that was a great play. I mean, that right there, he got smashed and grass all in his helmet.
Oh, yeah.
And you could tell he was a little woozy there, but he stayed in. He's a tough kid, man. That was a good game, man. It was a real physical game, like we expected. But yeah, it's going to be a good national championship, and I do think they got it right. I still think Georgia would have something to say about that because Georgia's probably sitting there saying, "We'll smoke all of you," but and they might, but they couldn't win the SEC. So, but yeah, it was a great weekend of games, college, pro. It was one of those good weekends, man, where everyone was probably around the TV and enjoying football and family and stuff. So it was a good weekend.
Well, I'll go back to this Michigan game real quick because this is we said that what the key was and they pulled it off was containing Jalen Milroe, right? They sacked him 6 times in that game, and they really contained him on his running, getting out of the pocket, and that's how they won. I mean, sacking him 6 times. If they can bring that over to next week's game against Penix, it's pretty similar. So it's that as well.
And joining us now is none other than Jinx, the man, the myth, the legend. Jinx, how you doing?
What's up, bud?
I wish I was having a better day today, but that was over here, like in Philly, I didn't get a chance to really go to sleep until like 1:30 because we had the East Coast time, but that was a game. That and I know you guys are gonna hate this. I call that classic Texas right there. That was classic Horns to me personally, because obviously I think you could tell right early on that it was definitely going to be a game that we were going to have to go win, and it wasn't going to be a game that was just going to be handed to us. I think that our DB room, I hope that Sark is hitting the portal hard, trying to find a DB, because at the end of the day, right, if you look at those receivers routes, they were nothing special, and our DBs were with them through the progression of their routes, but afterwards it's literally just a foot race, right? We're just simply not able to keep up with the high level receiver, and I don't see a future in where we're able to have success in these kind of championship games if we don't have it all squared away from your in interior linemen all the way out to your receivers to your DBs, right? You have to have the full package, and I feel like that's something that Nick Saban showed us, right, in the years with Alabama, and that's how you make your actual powerhouses. So that I think that's the most frustrating part, is that at the end of the day we didn't get it done. And listening to Sark's press conference, it's he's like, oh, these guys are still champions. It's yeah, we're the Big 12 champions, but how good really was the Big 12 this year? Realistically, we were kind of
I know what you mean, but they still are champions, and they still made it to the game. And a lot of those plays, dude, that's a great quarterback making great throws to great receivers. I mean, you look back at those, they were on them. I mean, it's just sometimes you get beat. And there were situations where no, it was bad, but there were a lot of those balls. I mean, the hand was right there. They just didn't look back fast enough. Or, I mean, it's just sometimes you get beat, man. And to me, I agree that they do need to work on that. And Sark's. I mean, if you look at his recruiting class, I mean, he has guys coming. So they had weaknesses and they're adjusting for that. And, that's nothing to, it wasn't going to help anything in the game yesterday. But they still had their chances. You don't fumble twice in the third quarter. We don't know what we're talking about in this game. Yeah. I mean, because our offense was clicking too. I mean, they if you look in the third quarter, I mean, that right there is what killed us. And they fumbled twice in the third quarter.
5 plays.
Well, and they had one of the fumbles was on our 25, 26-yard line. We stopped them, and they had to kick a field goal. When we fumbled on their 25, I mean, they were going and they couldn't stop us on that drive. And then, Blue fumbled. So it sucks, man, but
yeah, and really like another note on that kind of in the fourth quarter there, something that was just really like making me mad was why are we not running up to the line of scrimmage when we got 9 minutes left? Like, why? I understand, wanting to stay in like a rhythm, but at that point you got 9 minutes left. We're down 2 scores still, right? It's really going to come down to how much time is left on that clock. And at the end of the game, it would have been awesome to be able to throw the fade ball up and then get one more shot, right? And so I don't understand when you have 9 minutes left again. Why are we running kind of like a methodical offense? Why are we not hurrying up? And I think that was something for me that I just couldn't understand. I couldn't get to that idea. And just I think overall there was just like a complacency, right, within the team of if you kind of looked onto the sideline, it was like they were like okay if they lost this game. It's just like kind of the like feeling that I got from them was that if I lose this game, I still go home and I got $150,000 NIL bonuses and all these like incentives to play the game. And I just don't. I'm having a hard time. I think that if in 2005, right, you put that same team back in 2005 and it's Washington, Texas, back then when there's no NIL, Texas wins that game. Easy. Texas says, okay, you know what, right? We're lackadaisical right now. And they go out and they win the ball game. But I think Quinn can be like a leader. I just don't think Quinn's made for the big moment. I just don't personally.
I mean, he still threw for 300-some yards. Threw no interceptions. And so, like, I get what you're saying. To me, they did look a little dejected during the third quarter. And even when they started coming back in the fourth, it wasn't like the sideline was going crazy and stuff like that. And we got lucky, with that injury and that penalty. I mean, we should have never had a chance to score at the end. And I agree with that. But, I mean – I don't know. We
talked about it on Friday with Eric, and like we didn't need Quinn to have one of his great games. And even Eric said like he just need to have his above average game where he's going to throw for 250 plus, throw for a touchdown, be turnover free. And I mean, that's what he did, right? Yeah. He lost by 6 points. And he said, if Washington's going to win, Penix is going to have to carry the team and have the best game of his career. And he had the best game of his career.
And if the third quarter goes a little different, they're running the ball more. Yeah.
Oh,
because they were running at 6-7 yards a clip every time.
And I mean, Penix throws for whatever 430, like 76%. Like he had the best game of his career at the end of the day. And
yes, he did. But I mean, I want to say this though. Like I understand Quinn overall. If you look at the game, that's one of his like above average games, but these are championship games, right? This is a semifinal game. Like when you get to this point, pivotal passes matter, right? And I think the pivotal passes he was not connecting on. Yes, he had that huge pass to Whittington, right? Which really gave us life. I actually sat up out of my chair when he made that pass where I had my Texas shirt off thrown on the ground. And that kind of made me get back into it. But look at the first two passes of the drive of Sanders. It's like it's looking like he's not really like clicking. And then how do you do it twice? And then he was like missing reads to Worthy, right, all night. I felt like his just like overall pocket presence wasn't where it typically is. But again, pivotal passes, because if he connects to Sanders 2 times down the field and then throws a deep ball to Whittington, that might be in the end zone, touchdown, right? So I understand overall, right? He had a better game than his like average game, but pivotal players, right, make those actual pivotal plays, and I just think that that's something that he didn't do. Now, I hated the fact that they put the picture up of like Arch getting interviewed and, like Quinn's not. And I 100% think that had everything to do with why Quinn's kind of like demeanor seemed like it wasn't fired up. It seemed like he was a little bit like mellow or almost like a nervous. And I would be too, right? If everyone's interviewing my freaking backup the whole game, right? Then I'm thinking, wow, like if I don't win this game, then I'm never going to play again for the Horns, which I think should happen. But
Well, here's the thing.
I disagree with that, brother. I'm sorry. Everybody, hey, the kid's thrown like 3 passes. So, I mean, I think
like OU with now Jackson Arnold, and he has 5 turnovers in their bowl game. That could be ugly next
I
year.
think Manning's going to be good. I think the best thing for Texas, for Manning, for Quinn, everybody, Quinn to come back, Manning to get another year to learn the system. And I think Manning will be up. I mean, I think Quinn will be up for the Heisman next year.
Yeah, I mean,
I think his progression from last year to this year, another year of him in the weight room and him getting his feet better. I mean, I think Quinn did good this year. I'm not going to blame it on Quinn.
no, and you have to think every single QB that balled this year, like around
or old.
they're all 5th, 6-year guys, right? Penix, 6-year guy, Nick's 6-year guy, Gabriel, 5th-year guy, Daniel's 5th or 6-year guy. Like all these dudes are older than freaking NFL starters who have been 2 or 3-year starters in the league. So I think that was the difference of last night, is because Quinn was under the stress a lot, right? Washington got more pressure than maybe some were expecting him to get. And Quinn's just been that quarterback all year where he hasn't been able to deal with the pressure that well in the pocket to be able to make those throws like Penix was, right? Texas was getting some pressure, but can never get a hand on him because he's just so elusive and calm in the pocket and can still make those same throws outside of the pocket when he is pressured. And that's the difference of a 6-year quarterback who's done it and to a 3rd-year quarterback, right?
And how many rushing yards did Quinn have? He had 40-something.
Yeah. No,
Quinn, as for total, he probably had 350 yards by himself, or not by himself, but passing and rushing.
Well,
And I just think they threw us up our game in the 3rd quarter, and I think they were about to start running that ball down their throat, and it just, we fumbled twice, dude. I mean, that's huge.
It was a C+ game. I mean, it was just like the OU game. They killed them they killed themselves with penalties, killed themselves with turnovers, but instead of the turnovers in the 1st quarter, it was in the 3rd quarter, right? I mean, it's the same thing. Like they had a chance to win at the end of the game and couldn't get it done. Obviously, on last time was defense, this side was offense, and it was a C+ game from them again.
What was wrong with Sweat? What was wrong with Sweat? He seemed like he was coming in and out of the game.
Well, and that's the thing is
they rotate him.
Yeah, they made that bigger deal than what it was, because if you really go back and look, like him and Murphy, they only played like 50% of the snaps. Like those D tackles, they rotate out. Now, did Murphy and Sweat have a good game? No, not at all. Not one of them generated one pressure. Now
they did against the run,
and
they still didn't run the ball against us.
They didn't run, but they had no tackles for loss. Right, everything was like 1-2 yards in. The whole team didn't have a tackle for loss. So I think that was the biggest thing. We talked about on Friday, like if we come on Tuesday and we're talking about Ethan Burke and Barron Sherwell and those edge guys, then Texas did a good job, and we're not talking about them because they didn't touch the Penix.
Guys, and at the end of the day, I look at a football game of 3 things that you can control. You control turnovers, you control penalties, and you can control time of possession. Okay, and we got beat in all 3 of those things. Okay, their time of possession, 37 minutes. Texas time of possession, 23 minutes. Our penalties, 10 penalties for 66 yards. That kills us. They had 5 penalties for 39 yards. Turnovers, we got 2 fumbles. They have 1 muff punt, right? So Washington beat us in all 3 of those controllable categories, in my opinion. And that's and it's even crazy to think that we had a chance of still going down and winning the football game.
And you say that about the time of possession. We still had, 498 total yards.
Still almost had more yards than them, almost more first downs. But
It's weird.
It's the third quarter, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the third quarter loss.
The two fumbles, because I don't care what anybody says, they were going in to score at least a field goal when Blue fumbled.
Yeah.
To me, they on that drive, they couldn't be stopped. I think it would have been a touchdown, but you never know. But it's just you can't have those blunders, man. And it is, and especially against a guy like Penix, he's on fire. He's gonna score, and that's the thing. Everyone's talking about the defense and stuff, but we did hold them in times. Like when Baxter fumbled down there, we held them to a field goal. They got 1 first down, and then they had to kick a field goal. So in a switch of momentum at that point, giving up a field goal, that's huge, man.
Well, and even then, Washington didn't score a touchdown their last touchdown they scored was with 10 minutes left in the third quarter. From 10 minutes on in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, they did not score a touchdown. So the defense stepped up whenever it came down to it. Now, they gave up. Now,
I think that overall this game was very much like a winnable game situation in that fourth quarter due to our defense stepping up. I don't think overall I really wouldn't consider Texas to have played a terrible game. I just think in those pivotal moments, right? Because you're in a semifinal game. Things like fumbling the rock is going to happen. It's not going to be a perfect situation when you're playing under these lights and under pressure, right? Obviously, we start the game with a penalty or off rip, right? And I think that's just what happens when you're in these circumstances. But if you're a championship player, right? If you're a championship team overall, you have to take the little things you can get. And that's kind of where I talk about Quinn, and I'm saying I don't necessarily know if he is that kind of an actual baller quarterback-wise. He can play a great regular season, but there's a lot of quarterbacks who can play a great regular season. And I kind of just wanted to see that push through and that he's able to make those small plays. I think that, overall defensively helped us out a lot in that last aspect. I don't necessarily know what the play calling was in the end of that fourth quarter, but overall, it's when you don't when you don't consistently attack options correctly, it's going to be really easy to guard, right? I feel like everyone could have called, oh, Adonai had that one catch, right? We're going to go right back to him. If I'm Washington, I see that all day long, right? Versus if we could have gotten X involved, Sanders involved more, he would have had so many more targets to throw to. I'm happy for what's his name, Whittington, right? He had a great game, I think, and that was a huge game to hopefully launch him into the draft, getting hopefully picked up 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah, I think too. Where when you talk about Quinn, he was getting pressured a lot. They were bringing a lot of people. Our offensive line did not have a good game.
No.
Yes.
Not only with the false starts, almost every single dude had a false start penalty.
Yes. And there were drive killers.
Yes.
There were, yeah.
They had the drive killers like that with the holding or a false start. Almost every single one of them had, besides Majors, I want to say, is the only one who didn't have a penalty. And then obviously they were getting pressure on that. Their edge rushers were getting pressure on Jones. Jones played he played a poor. He's probably one of his poorest games of the year. And you look at the whole game in general on Texas's punts. They were 4 or 5 play punt drives. Right, they were not long, drawn-out drives. That's why the time of possession is so flopped, is because they had the 5 punts, and they were all 5 plays. And to start the second half, Washington comes out, great drive for a touchdown, right? And then Texas first play, fumble. So there's your first play of the third quarter. And then your next drive, you give up a field goal, whatever. You're down 10-0 in the second half now, right? Because the game was tied. So you're down 10-0. And then they come out 4 plays, punt, right? And that
Well, and on that one,
quarter.
they got a 16-yard gain, a 5-yard gain, but it had a penalty.
Yeah.
We had Kelvin Banks' false start. So then, they had a 5-yard gain and had to punt. So that should have been a first down right there. And I don't know.
And then after that punt, right, and it starts the fourth quarter, you hold Washington to a field goal.
Another field goal.
And then Texas' first drive back out is the fumble to start the fourth quarter. And then
after they got 5 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, and 19 yards.
Oh, they were about to put up 3 touchdowns in that fourth quarter easily.
Yeah.
But then they fumbled that drive, right? And then the second to last drive of the game, when they do kick that field goal, Quinn missed Worthy in the end zone on the slant. Should have easily connected for that touchdown. I mean,
and I know it was sloppy, and there's a lot we can say, but man, they didn't quit, and they did not. And you say, to me, they stepped up big, man. I mean, when we were watching it, everybody was dejected. You see, Longhorn Twitter was just like, I'm sick of these guys. And they did not quit, man. And they put themselves in a position to win that game. Now, they did get lucky with the injury, and they gave them time. And then that dumb penalty for getting in the punt interference. Yeah. But at the end of the day, man, they could have won that game. They had 4 shots to win it. And that first one, Sark said they were going to something in the middle to Jay Witt or to Sanders, and it just wasn't there. And that's why Quinn threw it out to Blue on the side there, which was scary as hell.
I don't think you can check down there. I think if that's not there, you get it away because he gets tackled and bounced.
Well, but he didn't. So it worked out. So
it wasn't even a check down. He was almost already out of bounds. That ball, if you catch it, the ball goes out of bounds either way.
And then on the second play, there was all that pressure. Yeah. And, he threw it out, and we luckily had a second left and to get that last play going. No, I think they should have gone back to wherever Muhammad was, because he went out after that long play to work, or was that to Adonai?
Yeah. I felt like, dude, he's hurt now. Let's go right back there.
Yeah.
So the 2 things I think really on those last 4 plays, the review killed him, right? We know when Sark has too much time to think about plays, he starts thinking too much and gets too creative. Sark's best.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Sark is best, bro. Sark has been best all year when they're rolling and doing like consecutive plays. When you're stopped that rhythm after 2 massive passing plays, 2 of the biggest all game, like that pass to Blue was ridiculous, right? Yeah. And you keep rolling like that, Washington's on their heels. You just had 2 25-yard plus plays where Sark's dialing up. Washington doesn't know what they're doing. Right, we talked about on Friday. If Texas kept moving like that, Washington was going to struggle. They can't handle tempo, so they were already struggling with those last 2 plays. But then the review just kills that momentum. Not only that, gets Quinn out of his rhythm, but then it gives Sark too much time. We've known all year in the red zone they've struggled, right? And the best they've done in the red zone is when Sark is quick with his decisions and it is just rolling. And when he had over 5+ minutes to think about what he was going to do in the red zone, it never has turned out good. All he
gets 5 minutes to think about what he wants to call in the red zone. You should probably figure it out. If you have to go off of, I got to get on rhythm, I get that. Rhythm. Okay. But you should also be able to sit there and think about your play call for 5 minutes and come up with a good play call.
Well, and like he said, he had a play called, and it was up the middle, and they defended it, so he had to throw it out to Blue. I mean, that's what he said. I don't know. I mean, if that's true, but
but Coop, it also gives Washington 5 minutes to get their
defense to get ready. Exactly.
Right, yeah. Because we got them on their heels. That's the perfect time. I think if he tried to go up right after the pass and he tries to go up middle route, I think that possibly that's really working.
And didn't they call a timeout anyways after the review?
I think they did.
Yes.
And weirdly enough, I thought it would have been cool if it was a little bit of a QB draw for the last play for some weird reason, I just felt like that might have scored a touchdown. Weirdly enough, given the success of our running backs, but I think really if you just throw away all the negativity, right? I think it's damn good to be able to say what if as a Texas fan now, right? All these years we've never been able to say what if this play went this way. We were in the semi-final game. And I think overall being a Texas fan, like that's why, yes, I think all of Texas is like really sad, upset, bitter. But at the end of the day, you can't hang your heads too long because you look at our past seasons and it's like the fact that now we are an established program, right? And we were the last 4 teams. I thought it was crazy being able to watch Texas football in January.
Yeah.
I thought that
It's awesome.
I mean, there hasn't been a head coach that's in year 3 that's made the playoff yet. I mean,
exactly.
That's what people got to realize. Like, we go look not only the past Texas coaches in year 3, right? Tom Herman, hot seat, major hot seat. Charlie Strong, not even barely making bowl games for Texas's part. But then, like looking around the nation, right? I mean, Michigan before this year, they've lost 3 straight years in a row in the semifinal games, all upset, right? They were all the higher seed in all those games and got upset each and every year. And that's with an experienced head coach, with an experienced roster, with plus year 5 on his team. Like, this is year 3. Like, I could like very well see now, obviously, like Texas makes it back next year, and if they get upset, then like you can complain and bitter and make all these excuses. But it's the fact that it's year 3, and yes, people had you making the Big 12 championship game and hopefully winning that. But after that, anything else is a plus. Whether you win, lose, or draw in these games, it's a plus going into the year. And because there's still a lot of potential coming back and a lot of dudes that can come back. That I think with that loss now, there's going to be quite a few dudes that were probably going to go to the NFL that decide to come back.
Yeah. And it just gives us that real time like experience, you know, now that it's going to be 12 teams. I don't think we'll struggle to get in next year, but we're going to have that experience in the later rounds playing at like this actual time of year. I think that plays a huge factor, right? This like Texas team's not used to doing that, right? So I think overall we'll have playoff experience going into a longer playoff, which I think will only help us in the future. And yeah, I mean, after hearing that, I think I'm a little bit more keen to the idea of actually having Quinn, right? Because he's played in this moment before, right? So yeah, I mean that just makes it tough because you're like, oh, Arch, are you able to step up first time? Because I think he will be over time. But yeah, having Quinn to be able to come into like a semifinal game next year, I'd feel much more confident.
I think Arch is gonna, I think he's gonna be great, but we'll see. You never know. But I do know another year of him learning Sark's system and behind Quinn, and Quinn has got hurt every year, so he's probably gonna get a chance to play. I mean, it's just the numbers say that. So, but yeah, I think they're Texas's best chance going into the SEC. All that is having Quinn at the helm. And Manning ready to back him up. I am worried about the defensive line, seeing who we're losing on that. But maybe AC comes back. Trill.
Yeah, there's
I think Trill will come back.
Decisions on that side of the ball that, especially when it comes to like a leadership, right? That's another big thing is like if a couple of these dudes that were leaders this year decide to come back, that's obviously.
But like who are you saying? Who do you think?
I mean, they think that there's a good chance of Alfred Collins that's going to come back.
I'd love to see him come back.
Same with Vern Brunn, right? Those are both your 2 other D tackles.
I think he will.
So that's your D line, right? Obviously, Ford's gone. But yes, Ryan Watts struggled down the stretch. We got to remember he had been hurt down the stretch too. And he was very good at the start of the year. And that's another dude that can easily come back. And on the DB side of things, that can help with all these young dudes coming in, because yes, you want a room full of dudes that can play, and all these young dudes coming in are going to be able to play and be studs, but you don't want a full room of just freshmen.
I'll tell you, my freshman Muhammad 100 out of 100 times over Watts.
But Muhammad,
So-
Muhammad got burned last night too, bud. I mean, so you
Okay,
acted like he was the greatest, but
yeah, maybe once, but when you have Watts who's playing press and you don't put a hand on the receiver, that's a problem. That's a problem. So
I think we got to get Taft out of there personally. Taft's got to go.
well, I mean, your two starting safeties next year are going to be Derek Williams, who's just a ball hawk, who they missed in the first half. Because think about second half,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
There was not as many of those big plays in the second half.
I agree.
Or big, like, I mean, he was in on almost every tackle. So you're going to have him. You got the Clemson transfer coming in,
yeah.
right? So, like, those are going to be your two starting safeties. And then you got your high school dudes, right? You got two arguably five-star safeties coming in that are going to be freshmen. I mean, they're going to have the pieces to put together where those dudes that were playing this year, like, they're not going to come back and play. Like, obviously, Taft's going to have a role, but you're not going to see Thompson there anymore. You're not going to see Crawford there anymore. Like, you're not going to see those dudes. And back then, secondary is going to look a lot different next year. Obviously, Muhammad should be one of those dudes that's going to lead that room. Terrence Brooks, I mean, he's 17 years old. Like, he's a redshirt freshman or true sophomore, but he's only 17 years old still. Like, he came into Texas at the age of 16. So that's another dude that's full of potential whenever it comes to that corner position. And yes, like whether Ryan Watts doesn't come back or not, but there's still think that there's a good chance on the offensive side of the ball that one of the three receivers, counting Sanders as a receiver, comes back, especially with that loss now. Like, everyone's talking about.
I don't see it.
I don't know.
I see
I don't
Mitchell.
see it.
I see Mitchell coming back. I'm calling that.
But honestly, looking at it as an NFL team,
Oh, no way. There's no way.
Mitchell
He said it. He said he was thinking about it. You haven't heard Worthy say anything. Worthy's like, I'm out.
Mitchell comes back for one more year. He's a lock first round. He won't get drafted first round this year. There's too many receivers, and he's making good NIL money. His kid lives here, right? Everything's in line for him to come back. And he even said, like, he thought he was a complete receiver, and he got here, and then he realized, like, damn, I'm not a complete receiver yet, and I can really learn from Sark and put up numbers. And he can put up way more numbers next year. And I personally think he's going to come back.
and that's fine, and I hope he does. But they really need to work on with him, his attitude and the way he runs routes if he's not getting the football. Have you seen how lazy he runs routes if he's not getting the football? It's actually ridiculous. So that's one thing, like, from next level to college, that, like, they're gonna really see. That's like, oh, like, this guy doesn't give it a full 100% if he's not getting the ball, you know? So that's another thing. So
No doubt. Well, unfortunately, our time on the edge is coming to an end. You could talk about it all day, and people are going to talk about it all off season, but we're going to look more into it on Friday's episode, a little bit of what's to come, who we think are going to be coming back, big steps. Jinx, thanks for joining us. But
Of course.
everyone, stay on the edge and have a great Tuesday. We'll see you Friday for Friday's episode.
Welcome.